what you're introducing is critical theory for those who might not be that aware. Although it's becoming, I think people are waking up to this reality. This is something that originated as a theory in the 1930s and 40s by something called the Frankfurt School of Philosophers, who were basically a misanthropic grouping of philosophers who had seen some crazy shit in World War I. They saw humanity doing some pretty terrible stuff, and they essentially concluded that that World War I, the horrors of what was leading up to World War II, were caused by human beings being connected to their traditions, that the traditions of the past, the belief in nationalism, religious adherence, family units, all of these things that connect us as individuals to the past, caused world wars to happen, caused all of the abuses and negative things. And so their cure that they came up with as social psychologists was to come up with a way that would, a system of theories that unfortunately today is very active and dominant in the Western education system and culture more generally, to encourage ways to break society free, especially the young generations born after World War II, who were subjected to increasing doses of this system, that basically would break them free of being infected with the thinking of white dead European males. Because the idea was, if you're all theories that are dominant today are dominant because people who had superiority colonial complexes imposed their views of the way the world works onto the weaker people, whether it's race or females or whatever, the non-dominant groups. And that's what became, in a sort of Darwinian survival of the fittest fashion, that's what became the dominant systems of thought in the world of the 20th century. Now, it's true that there are bad theories that were input onto us by dominant white European males, right? There were bad white European males, just like there were bad everybody. There were bad women and bad black people in, Africa who enslaved various other of their own brethren, right? You could find cases of good and black everything, but their conclusion was it's specifically Dante, Shakespeare, Mozart, all of these, they're all as equally bad as Hitler's views or any, and so we have to find ways of bringing in theories that are thus relevant, that don't allow people to judge right and wrong, because it's the act of judging right and wrong that causes war. Because obviously Hitler made judgments of what was right or wrong, and we saw the consequences of his judgments, which was war and mass death. So it's the judging that they're saying is bad, the inner standard of thinking that you have a better and a worse that you can standardize or use as a standard to decide what is going to happen. That all had to go. And so the relevant, like, more modernist theories that they promulgated, people like Theodor Adorno, Max Horkheimer, Erich Fromm, Kurt Lewin, are names who play a prominent role in this matrix of thinking. They basically said, okay, we need people who reflect the ugliness of the world, because the world is ugly, and people have, as to the degree that they believe that the United States was founded on goodness, or that there's good things in their white dead European male writers that they like, to the degree that they think that there's actual nobility there, they're sick, and we have to heal them. So to be healed, you have to be able to accept the ugliness of the world that is. And so that became why you had things like Lord of the Flies that became taught as part of the high school curricula to young malleable people whose ideas were underdeveloped, and they were now being introduced to cynical views of human nature embedded in these stories that were promulgated, like what we saw in Lord of the Flies, or Halden Caulfield in Catcher in the Rye, or Aldous Huxley's Brave New World, or Fahrenheit 451. But all of these things were then put in, right? Whether you're in Europe or whether you're in Canada or the US, you're now reading these things as a grade 9, grade 10, grade 8 even kid. And when you're going to university, it's even worse. Now you're ripe, having gone through that, to read things like Sartre or Camus, or other cynical people who just really despise humanity, or Nietzsche. They don't like humanity, but that's what they're, and you're feeding off of this stuff, or going into the arts programs or music programs that we talked about our last show. you're now being told, you're conditioned to now accept the ugliness, which you have to respect in modern art, abstract art, which is just as good, you're told, as Rembrandt or Da Vinci. Jackson Pollock and Mark Rothko are just as good as Da Vinci and Rembrandt. There's no qualitative difference. You can't judge one is better than the other, or else you're a fascist.